Okay, let's start making our Ninja Woods game in GameMaker. Quickly before we get started, if you go to the GameMaker menu, down to settings, there's a few things that I like to do when I start using GameMaker for the first time. So if I go to general settings, I really advise you, this is by default set to 100 and everything on the screen looks a little bit large for my liking. I usually go down to about 80, but you can play about with that number yourself and try and find one that's going to allow you to read everything easily, but get as much kind of content on the screen as possible. Because quite a lot happening in the Game Maker workplace, and you don't want to do a lot of unnecessary scrolling. Next thing is you want to make sure that your code editor 2 has been enabled. That just puts all the code in one place, makes things a whole lot easier and quicker. I guess the only option where you might uncheck this would be if you're watching an older video which is using the older code editor and you want to match what you're seeing on the screen, you can jump back in here and switch that off. The other thing that I do is in the object editor, and I uncheck this button here, which means it won't automatically add this little kind of code comment every time you make a new event. Okay, I'll show you what I mean once we get starting with the coding. So you can just hit OK, and then we can go new game, blank game. I'm going to call my game Ninja Woods 1. The reason that I add 1 is because when we have new development sessions, we're going to incrementally add to that number, meaning that we've got lots of different versions of our game so we can easily roll back if something goes wrong. Also, I've made a new folder on my desktop. You can create a folder wherever you save your files, but it needs to be well organized and somewhere safe because you definitely don't want to lose all the hard work you're going to put into making these games. So inside here I've made a folder called Ninja Woods, and I'm going to save my Ninja Woods 1 game inside here so that all of these Ninja Woods versions are going to be organized in this folder. So you can navigate to that by clicking on the little folder here, going desktop, and then getting to this point and just hitting open. Okay, so I can say let's go, and it's going to open up my default kind of workspace. It all looks pretty blank right now. So you've got all these folders pre-made for you, but they're essentially all empty right now. The only one that has any content is this one here that's kind of shaded in, and it's got a starting room. I'm going to rename this to RM for room underscore, I'm going to call it level 1. So we can't have any spaces in these names, so that's why we use underscore. And for all these different names that we assign, we're going to connect them to the type of asset that it is. So I can double click on this to see it here. Here's my room at this point. If I hit this play button, it's going to run the game. And here's my blank black room. Let's go and change the size a little bit, and let's change the color of it a little bit. So I close my game, come back here, and I'm going to say, I'm not going to change the size massively. I'm just going to go for 1280 by 720, which is a pretty standard widescreen resolution. And I'm going to click on background, and I can just go down here and click in the color. I'm going to find something it's kind of a little bit lighter and kind of like fresher looking. Okay, yeah, I guess it could be a nice kind of like background sky right now. So I'm going to hit OK. You can keep on checking how things look by hitting the run button. Okay, it's looking good. So I'm just going to close that folder so it doesn't get in the way all the time. Go away. No, it's not going away. It's weird. Okay, go away there. So we need to get our character on our screen into our game. The way that we're going to do that is by loading them in from the asset bundle that we previously downloaded. So we go Tools, Import Local Package, go to your Downloads folder, grab the one with the GameMaker style file extension, and you hit Open. So you can see it working away here a little bit to import that. It should take about 15-20 seconds. And then now I can do a little look through some of the files here to see what we've got. To make things easy, let's just add everything and then say import. So it should take a few seconds. And doesn't look like much has happened, but you see these folders now are shaded in, meaning that they have got stuff inside them. We've got loads of sprites, we've got some tile set stuff. So let's start off by getting our main character onto the screen. So we can look in sprite folder, and then we've got our player, and then we've got different versions of how our player can look, different states for them to be in. We've got idle, which is just kind of like standing about, not doing much, walking, jumping, falling, and when they are hurt. So let's look at the idle one. That's how we're going to start off. You can double click on it. You can notice that because we used the GameMaker import, everything's been really nicely named for us. SPR_player_idle. So I can click here and see what that looks like. So he's just kind of like swaying about a little bit in the spot. I can't, if I go back to my room here, this is my background layer. The instance layer is where all our kind of active elements of our game are going to go. If I try and drag this player sprite, it's going to have a red X. It's not going to be happy with that. It's not going to let you do it. I'm going to say cancel. We need to attach this player idle to an object, because objects are what we use in our rooms. That's where we do our coding. So I'm going to go right click, create object, and we're going to have obj for object, and we're going to call it object player. Going to hit enter, and down here I can select my sprite. So let's go to player idle, and you can see that the little icon has changed to match the sprite that we've attached. So I can go back to my room, and I can just click on my object, and I can now drag this person in here, and let's hit play again, and it should automatically give us the little idle animation. Okay. Next up, we need to create some ground here for our player to run about on. So I'm gonna stop this, and one of the easiest ways of doing that in a game is using a tile set. Now, the assets that we installed there have got one little error that I noticed before. So you can see here how this tile set has got the cave. It's got a little kind of image there. This one's got kind of water, but this one here is kind of like got this little kind of graphic that shows it's got no sprite attached. That's a little bit of a mistake in the package, but we can go and find it and reconnect it with its proper place by selecting a sprite, going into our sprites menu here, and whereabouts were they? Tile set sprites. And you can see this is the one that it's meant to be connected with. Okay, so we can just manually do that. So let's go and use these to draw some ground for our player to run about on. So we are going to click over here in our room to create a layer. We are going to use a tile layer, and I'm going to right click here, and I am going to give it a name. Naming things is really important, because otherwise you're just going to get so quickly mixed up. Okay, so it's a tile set and it's ground. Now to add stuff to it, we need to tell it which tile set to actually use. So I click on here, no tile set. Here's the one here, tile set worlds. And I can now click on the tile that I want, and I can drag and draw about with these. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click and select two of them at the same time. And this is going to be my kind of ground. In fact, let me just do one. Let's just go with, let me see. Do we want to do two? I guess let's do two then. So I'm going to have my room looking a little bit like this. So I could click and I can drag along. and I go all the way to the end. I could also have used the line tool to basically click and draw a line. I'm going to Command Z, stop that. Okay, so I can go back to my assets here, and I can click run. So I've got some ground, I've got my player, but they're just kind of like floating in the sky, and I don't have any controls yet. So let's end this video here, and then in the next video we're gonna get some gravity by doing a little bit of kind of coding, and then we're gonna get our player running about, and maybe even doing some jumps.